Ethical
Ethical
Perspectives
Perspectives
on
on
the
the
News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Lynn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV9.
Yes, well, hi everyone. I want to thank you for joining us again for Ethical Perspectives on the News. This evening we will be basically focusing on police reform in the city of Cedar Rapids and specific to House File 2746. This is our second time doing the show as a live broadcast and stream, and so we hope that you are able to join us, and if not, that we'll have this information available on YouTube that you can view and also share with others that may want to hear more about this particular topic in our community. And so I'm going to first start by introducing our panel for this evening. We have Chief Wayne German. He is the police chief for the city of Cedar Rapids. And I'd like for Chief Wayne to give us a bit about his work that he's done in his tenure with the city of Cedar Rapids, and as well as any additional information that he'd like to share during his intro.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I've been the chief of police here in Cedar Rapids since October of 2012. Our department has increased in size since we arrived here. We're a full service police department, and I'm very proud of the fact that the police department earned full accreditation, advanced accreditation from the Commission on Law Enforcement Accreditation last May. And why I feel it's significant is out of the 18,000 police departments in the United States, only 5% have achieved accreditation. And again, I'm very proud and honored to be the chief here, and I work with an unbelievable complement of sworn and non-sworn employees here who are part of the Cedar Rapids Police Department. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so next we have City Council Member Dale Todd. This is Council Member Todd's second opportunity to serve our community as a city council member. He initially served and was also the city's first African American to serve as a council member for our city. And he's also come back for opportunities to continue on with his public service charge. And Council Member Todd, would you like to share a bit about yourself and what brought you back to the city in this capacity?
Well, Sheila, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts on this issue that's in front of us today. I also wanted to take a second to thank you for all the hard work that you did while you were employed with the city of Cedar Rapids. We miss you. We wish you the best. This is, I'm looking forward to continuing these discussions with you. But I grew up on the south side of Chicago in Woodlawn. I got here in 1974 to go to Coe College. I've been here ever since. I love this community. I sort of grew through the ranks of the neighborhood associations, and this was during I would say, the height of the crack cocaine epidemic in our nation. I got to work closely with the police department to help stabilize and make our neighborhoods safer. And I ran for office in '98, and I ended up being elected to as Commissioner of Parks and Public Property, where, it was really easy to see the relationship between kids that didn't have hope or didn't have recreational opportunities and high incidences of crime. And so I ran again a couple years ago. I had a sneaky feeling that these were going to be challenging times. I chaired the Public Safety Committee that Councilman Overland serves on. And right now, in front of us is not just this issue of police reform, this discussion, but on a daily basis, we are faced with this issue of gun violence in our community that we deal with. And we're trying to develop solutions to it. I'm in this awkward, but I consider it a great place where I appreciate the relationship I have with the police department. As Chief said, it's a good one. It's one that is not afraid to discuss change, embrace progressive ideas. It's one that we look forward to every day in terms of how can we improve our relationships with people in the community. And so I hope this is a discussion that takes us to that place. But thank you for the opportunity to share our side of the story.
Okay, and thank you. My next guest is Council Member Scott Overton. He is not only a council member, but also Mayor Pro Tem. Unfortunately, the mayor wasn't available to meet with us, but he did provide another opportunity for one of our city council members to serve on this panel. And my first work with him was serving on the Civil Rights Commission. He was, previously one of our liaisons. And so I'll go ahead and let you share a bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, LaSheila. It's a pleasure to be with you again. And I certainly enjoyed those first few years in my first term, starting in 2016 when you were chairing the Civil Rights Commission. My service in the city of Cedar Rapids started with about 9 to 10 years on the City Planning Commission. And I decided I would run for the open seat in 2015 on the council. And I'm District 2, which is about half of the northeast side and about a third of the southeast side. I really enjoy working with Gail on the Public Safety Committee. I started out on that committee, and now I'm back on it again, and we certainly have our work cut out for us, as Dale had mentioned. In addition, in my first term, I wanted to have a neighborhood focus. So my goal was to get a lending program called the Neighborhood Finance Corporation up and running. And the Neighborhood Finance Corporation helps homeowners renovate homes in the core part of the city. And it's been up and running now for a year and a half, and things are really starting to boom for it. In fact, the highest percentage of loans are in Wellington Heights, which is kind of what we thought, and things are going well. So I spend time pushing that along. But I've been a resident of Cedar Rapids for 35 years. I work for Cedar Rapids Bank and Trust, and my wife and 2 kids, children are growing up, and we've got 2 grandkids here in town. And so I have a lot to be proud of, as well as keeping Cedar Rapids going.
Okay, well, thank you all for sharing a bit about yourself. I want to first start off to say this particular discussion focuses on police reform with regard to state legislation and how that kind of materializes at the local level. And so there's a lot that we really could talk about this particular subject, but just kind of leaning in from our last taping, which the focus was on the particular House file. We're going to do the same thing for this discussion as well. The first question is that, for House File 2647, one aspect of it that it focuses on is the prosecution of criminal offenses committed by law enforcement officers. And so I'd like any of you to chime in on what are your thoughts about having the Attorney General prosecute law enforcement, and how does that look? How would that look here in Cedar Rapids if it's something that we're expected to follow?
Well, I know from my experience, we've had the Attorney General investigate one of our officer-involved shootings due to a conflict that the Linn County Attorney's Office would have had. So again, having a state agency or an outside agency investigate an incident, I'm very, very open to it. With respect to prosecuting an officer who commits a criminal offense, that's something that if that did occur, where a police officer were to commit a crime, they are subject to the same laws as everyone else is in terms of prosecution, whether or not the county attorney was going to file or the state Attorney General would file, or even if it's under the jurisdiction of federal authorities, the U.S. Attorney would file. So, I'm very much about officers being held accountable for their actions, and that would apply if there was a criminal violation that would result in these charges being filed.
Thank you. Any other thoughts about this particular provision? How might it look here locally, or anything you've observed similar to, I guess, another state that has a similar type of legislation or provision?
We've always had a history of, if there's conflicts, then you call the DCI in, and the DCI would investigate. And I guess in essence, really what for me is important is that you really need all parties in agreement that you are the goal is to prosecute those who break the law, and to get to the root of the action. And so, that's what I think we're all interested in seeing. That's why the legislature weighed in on this in the House file. Everybody wants to make sure that officers that do wrong are prosecuted, and so I don't think there's any controversy on this part of the code at all, LaSheila.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And that I think that's a good segue to one of the particular aspects of this file that it not only impacts us here locally, but what we've seen across the nation and even globally is what happened with regard to when looking at what's gone across in the last few months in our nation, the use of chokeholds and other techniques have definitely been something that have been more, and I want to make sure I'm clear about this, but it's been something that we've seen that has brought a lot of heartache to people because of maybe a technique was done wrong, or someone lost their life because of the use of chokeholds. And so from that aspect, and knowing and recognizing, just even as a community, that we are ahead of things in different areas with regard to law enforcement, and also that there's an agreement that if someone, if a police officer or a law enforcement officer conducts something that's egregious or even considered to be a criminal offense, what I would like to learn or hear from you all about, the House File 2647's provision about the deadly use of chokeholds, and even your personal thoughts about that may shed light on why you believe that this is important to have in writing.
Well, LaSheila, before the governor signed this new law, the Cedar Rapids Police Department already banned chokeholds. We don't train chokeholds, and as I mentioned, we prohibited the use of chokeholds by policy unless the situation allowed for deadly force, and that's what the current legislation does allow. So before George Floyd was murdered, the Cedar Rapids Police Department had a strong use of force policy, which banned the use of chokeholds. Since his murder, we have strengthened our use of force policy to include specific verbiage that knees to the neck are also prohibited, because again, we don't train our officers to use that technique when applying force. And then we also added the verbiage for the duty to intervene, that officers are now required by policy to intervene if they encounter another officer using excessive force. So in terms of the relationship between the House file and our policy, we again are in compliance, and we were in compliance prior to the governor's law.
Now, I would just add, if I could, that this is an example of where the Cedar Rapids Police Department, under the leadership of Chief German, have been ahead of the curve in many ways, and recognize that that's not an appropriate method of policing, as well as other measures such as body cameras, which the officers have been wearing now for a couple of years. And so I'm on the Public Safety Committee, as well as in my 5th year on the council. I've been very impressed at the way that the police department looks for ways to improve on a continuous basis. And that also extends to de-escalation training, which has been going on for several years, as well as analyzing when force can be used or should be used.
You know, I would say that I think as a council and as a department, we are all cognizant of the fact that this wasn't just George Floyd. When you talk about chokeholds, you go back to Eric Gardner, and I don't think there's anybody who can watch the video of those New York police officers with Eric Gardner and not realize that that was inappropriate. That's not what is trained. That is how people die, and I think with that and Ferguson and these series of events that have happened, it has pushed us to not shy away from these discussions at all, and to already talk about internally, how can we do things better? How can we minimize the interactions between the community and the department so that we don't have to get into a situation where force is used? Those are the things that we talk about on a daily basis. And those are the things that, again, the chief and the department are embracing. So I think we're in a better place. I know we are in a better place than a lot of other communities in Iowa and in the Midwest. And we constantly ask ourselves, how can we improve on that and get better?
And I'll definitely, I think at the last taping, a previous interview I had with some of our community leaders, excuse me, one thing I did point out is that, hey, when I did see George Floyd there, it reminded me of he looked like one of my late uncles. And, it definitely, to see that it was initially was difficult to look at without just, knowing him individually. He reminded me of someone that I had a personal connection with as a family member. And it was definitely, difficult to see just everything that led up to his death. It was it was tough. It was definitely tough. Are there, any thoughts about, just, about that situation? Was that, I know it wasn't one of the issues that brought the local police department to immediately do as a result of that. It sounds like there was an effort to make these things not lawful with the city. One question I do want to ask is, when did you first hear about the incident regarding George Floyd, and maybe how have some other individuals in the community express their thoughts about that death? Because Minnesota is about 4 hours from Cedar Rapids. So did anyone in the community express concern with some of the actions that have taken place since it's so close?
I think it's really critical to go back to something the chief said earlier. And that was the part about how the department already is one of 5% in the nation that is accredited. And LaSheila, you mentioned earlier that I was on the council in 1998 to 2002. And so I've worked with a lot of versions of our police department. And I stand firm in saying that I strongly believe that this is one of the best departments that we have had in probably the last 35 years that I've been here in Cedar Rapids with the department. They're college educated, and they really work hard to. No officer wants to have to pull their gun, contrary to what people might lead you to believe. And I'm going to resist efforts that people might make where they try to compare our department to Minneapolis or to other communities or Chicago or others. We've got, again, a good department, and I'm not saying that we don't make mistakes. You don't have to tell the officers, they know. But in whole, in summation, this is one of the better departments in the Midwest for a mid-sized city, if not in the country. And so, again, we want to make sure we build on that. If there's problems and people want to point them out, we'll fine. I mean, we're fine with having those discussions. But I would tell you, LaSheila, and to your viewers out there, that today it is harder today to be a police officer than it has ever been, probably in our country's history, and that is a tough burden for people to carry. At the same time, there is a significant discussion that is occurring in our country about race and about the economy, about opportunity, and about reform that we all need to play a role in. And so how those things come together, it's going to be an interesting 2 or 3 years as those discussions occur. But if we all work together and focus on the right things, I think we can come out of this in a better place than we are today.
And I want to add on to that. I want to thank Scott for his comments, and also Dale for his. I've been a cop for a long time, and I can say without a doubt that the Cedar Rapids Police Department is an outstanding police department. Not because of me. It's outstanding because of the men and women who make up the police department, especially the officers who go out every day, every night, and do what they're asked to do. And again, I've been a cop for over 40 years. And as Dale said, now is a time where it's been the hardest to be a police officer. But I can tell you, and I can assure every member in this community that they have an outstanding police department, and it is made up of very, very committed and dedicated individuals. And I just don't want to lose sight of that and not be able to relay my thoughts and feelings. I'm truly blessed to be a member of this police department and work with these folks here.
I would add just one thing real fast. The other thing that comes to mind is that our police department, as well as fire department, all departments are accountable to ultimately the city council, who have been elected, all 9 of us, to represent the citizens. And really, at the end of the day, the buck stops with us, and we are extremely cognizant of one of the most important activities of a city is public safety, both police and fire. And so not a day goes by that any council person doesn't think about the job that our police and fire have to do, since it's a job that most of us would find it to be rather difficult, as Dale mentioned.
Okay, well, thank all of you for your insight on it. Having worked with the city, I know it does take a great deal of time and working with the public to figure out how can we continue to have a law enforcement agency that really serves the people. And having worked with Chief German, especially with some of the law enforcement aspect when I was with the city, just even have the understanding of how processes work, even with, working in civil rights in the city, there is a process in time that's spent to make things take place that does include a diversity of opinions from the community. And so I only have a couple of minutes here, but I just want each of you to touch a bit on police oversight. And I know that there's an effort to develop some type of form of a police oversight committee or council or group of individuals, because we have about 4 minutes left, and I said it goes by pretty fast, but if you could give me maybe your thoughts about the work that you're doing and in gathering information and developing a type of police oversight group, if you can share your thoughts about that briefly.
I can start the conversation. The city is gathering information from any and all entities that are interested in this topic. There's roughly 150 to 200 citizen review boards out of 18,000 police departments in the country. So the fact that we're willing to examine this and put it into place, I'd say, is rather progressive on the part of our city. One of the things I've gathered as we're in the process of getting information, and what I've done on my own, is I've discovered, I should say, that there doesn't seem to be an exact model that you can follow, both in the formulation of it or what powers and roles that the Police Review Board ultimately has. And so it's a very, very important topic, and all information is a form of educating the City Council on helping us make the best decision for the greater good of the citizens of Cedar Rapids.
Okay, and I have about 2 minutes. Chief German or Councilmember Todd, do you have any other quick thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in support of looking at a civilian citizen review board to do a couple of things. One is to enhance the transparency between the police department and the community. It's also to increase the level of trust between the police department and the community we serve. I don't know how it's going to be made up, but I would also like to have the ability where it will highlight and hear examples of the outstanding work the men and women who protect this city do on a daily basis. So I know there's thoughts about having some sort of reviews for uses of force or other incidents. Well, I'd also advocate to allow for highlighting, life-saving efforts, commendations, and again, the work that these men and women do.
Okay, thank you. And quick feedback, Councilmember Todd.
Hey, we will do we will do anything we can to help shed light on the department. We're not afraid of that at all. We will do what's in the best interest of the community, and we will make sure that we protect the rights of all citizens, including police officers.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us for this very much needed discussion. Other than that, I want to thank you, and I hope that the listeners had an opportunity to hear another perspective on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.